What would you do if your boyfriend of 5 years invited you to a special dinner and instead of the ring you'd been waiting for, he raised his glass to celebrate his promotion? Zoe's patience finally snapped. She threw champagne right in his face and stormed off for revenge, straight to a mysterious stranger at the bar. But this charming stranger, hiding secrets of his own, was about to change Zoe's life forever. That morning, John, Zoe's longtime boyfriend, had texted her, "Wear something nice, darling. I've got a surprise for you. Dinner, 8 p.m. At 27, Zoe had built her life from scratch. Her bakery, her independence, her dreams. She'd stood by John through every late night, every excuse, every empty promise, forgiving, hoping, waiting, for 5 years. She'd told herself love was patience, love was sacrifice. But when John raised his glass that night, it wasn't to her. "To me," he said with a smug smile. "Vice President, new office, the view is incredible. Honestly, I deserve it." Zoe froze, her chest hollowing. She forced a tight smile. "You know what's funny, John? After 5 years, I thought maybe tonight would finally be about us. But of course, it's always about you, isn't it?" He chuckled, swirling the wine. "Come on, Zoe, don't be dramatic. You should be happy for me." Her hands trembled on the stem of her glass. "Happy? You don't even see me sitting here. Do you remember the last time you asked what I wanted? Or is this just the John Goodman show every damn night?" His smirk widened. "You're overreacting." That was it. Zoe stood slowly, her pulse steady now. She lifted her champagne flute, leaned across the table, her voice low, razor-sharp. "Here's to you, John. To everything always being about you." With one flick of her wrist, the champagne hit his flawless, smug face. Gasps rippled across the restaurant. Champagne dripped down his $1,000 suit. John sputtered, eyes wide, then shot up from his chair, scanning the horrified stares around them. "Zoe Foster! You're gonna regret this! I'll be sending you the dry cleaning bill!" he shouted, but the real wound was written all over his ruined image. Zoe didn't wait. Her heels clicked against the marble as she strode past velvet tables and stunned eyes, straight to the bar at the far end. Her heart hammered, but she lifted her chin and tapped the shoulder of a man seated alone. He turned, broad shoulders, dark leather jacket, cool, unreadable eyes that looked like they belonged to another world. Zoe's breath hitched, and before she could lose her nerve, the words tumbled out, fast, desperate. "Sir, I swear I've never done anything like this, but I need your help. That man back there, he wasted 5 years of my life. For the next 10 minutes, I need him to believe I don't care. Just pretend like you're interested in me. Order me a drink. Laugh like I said something funny. Walk out with me if you have to. Then you'll never see me again. I promise. Please, I just need this." The stranger studied her for a beat, then the corner of his mouth curved in a faint smirk. His voice was low, edged with dry amusement. "Well, this is new." He lifted his glass slightly, tilting it toward her. "Not gonna lie, I respect the boldness, and I've got 10 minutes to kill. Let's play." Zoe slid onto the stool beside him, pulse racing, cheeks flushed. Behind her, John stood dripping with champagne, watching in stunned disbelief as the woman he had taken for granted leaned closer to a stranger and laughed. The bar glowed amber, shadows flickering across shelves of crystal bottles. Conversations swirled in the background, clinking glasses, low laughter, but Zoe barely heard any of it. All she felt was the weight of John's stare burning into her back. The stranger, tall, broad-shouldered with dark hair that fell just so, shifted slightly, giving her a sidelong glance. His expression was unreadable, except for the faint curve of a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You really just dumped champagne on him, didn't you?" His voice was smooth, almost lazy, but edged with quiet amusement. Zoe flushed. "I didn't mean to. Well, actually, I did. But he deserved it." The man tipped his glass toward her, eyes glinting. For the record, it was excellent aim. Despite herself, Zoe laughed, a soft, nervous sound that eased some of the tightness in her chest. She folded her hands in her lap, trying to remember she had only asked him for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes, to look like she wasn't shattered inside. The bartender appeared. The stranger nodded toward Zoe. "She'll have whatever she wants. Put it on my tab." "Oh, no, really, you don't have to," Zoe began, but the man cut her off with a single look, cool and steady. "Relax," he said. "You asked for 10 minutes. This is how the act works." Zoe slid onto the stool beside him, pulse racing, cheeks flushed. Behind her, John stood dripping with champagne, watching in stunned disbelief as the woman he had taken for granted leaned closer to a stranger and laughed. The bar glowed amber, shadows flickering across shelves of crystal bottles. Conversations swirled in the background, clinking glasses, low laughter, but Zoe barely heard any of it. All she felt was the weight of John's stare burning into her back. The stranger, tall, broad-shouldered with dark hair that fell just so, shifted slightly, giving her a sidelong glance. His expression was unreadable, except for the faint curve of a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You really just dumped champagne on him, didn't you?" His voice was smooth, almost lazy, but edged with quiet amusement. Zoe flushed. "I didn't mean to. Well, actually, I did. But he deserved it." The man tipped his glass toward her, eyes glinting. For the record, it was excellent aim. Despite herself, Zoe laughed, a soft, nervous sound that eased some of the tightness in her chest. She folded her hands in her lap, trying to remember she had only asked him for 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes, to look like she wasn't shattered inside. The bartender appeared. The stranger nodded toward Zoe. "She'll have whatever she wants. Put it on my tab." "Oh, no, really, you don't have to," Zoe began, but the man cut her off with a single look, cool and steady. "Relax," he said. "You asked for 10 minutes. This is how the act works." She set her glass down and straightened her shoulders. "Fine. One picture." He leaned in, closer than she expected, his arm sliding casually along the back of her chair. The scent of him, clean, cool, something expensive she couldn't place, wrapped around her. He angled his phone, snapped a photo. Zoe forced herself not to look at John, but she could feel it. His jealousy, his disbelief, his outrage, and for once she savored it. The stranger checked the picture, then showed her with a dry chuckle. "Not bad. I almost look like I like you." Zoe's lips parted, startled laughter escaping. "You're insufferable." "And yet," he murmured, leaning just a little closer, "you're still sitting here." Her pulse stumbled. 10 minutes, she reminded herself. Just 10 minutes. But already those minutes didn't feel like enough. The stranger signaled the bartender again, as calm as if he weren't deliberately playing with fire. "Another round," he said. Then, without looking at her, he added, "Name's Aiden, by the way. Seems fair you know it before we scandalize your ex any further." Zoe turned toward him, her heart thudding in her ears. Aiden. For 5 years, Zoe hadn't looked at another man besides John. But tonight, for the first time, she realized there were decent, charming men out there. Aiden's easy confidence, his natural way. It shook her. She turned and caught John still glaring at her from the table. He tossed back the last of his wine and started striding toward her. Zoe spun to Aiden, panic in her voice. "He's coming. I don't want trouble. I don't want you dragged into this. I should go." But Aiden gently caught her arm. "Look, I don't know what went down between you two. I'm not here to get in the middle of something you might fix tomorrow, but if you're really done with him, if you need backup, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." John stormed up, eyes blazing. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Zoe? And who the hell is this guy? You're coming with me. Right now. You've ruined one of the best nights of my life, and trust me, you'll pay for this stunt later." Zoe's eyes widened, but her voice was steady. "You're so full of yourself, John. We're done. And if you're worried, don't be. Aiden's taking me home. I honestly wish you the best in someone else's life." John's gaze slid over Aiden with contempt, sizing up his black leather jacket and jeans. "Wow, at least when you were with me, people thought you had taste." Aiden calmly set his drink on the bar. His tone was low, even. "Easy, man. No one is looking for a fight. Zoe just said she's not going home with you. Be a gentleman for once and take no for an answer." John scoffed, gave a dismissive shrug. "Not worth the trouble anyway." He shot Zoe a final look of disdain and stormed out toward the door. Zoe's eyes brimmed as she watched him leave. She shook her shoulders, sat back on the bar stool. Aiden leaned in, tilting his head. "Hey, so what's it gonna be? Game still on, or you heading after him?" Zoe shook her head, voice bitter. "I put up with that for 5 years, and tonight I was actually stupid enough to expect a proposal. God, I must be insane. I don't even think I wanted to marry him." "Proposal, huh?" Aiden raised a brow, pulling back slightly. "Guess this was a lot more serious than I realized." "It doesn't matter anymore." Zoe forced a bright smile, grabbed her glass, and downed it in one go. "As of tonight, it's the post-John era of my life, and I'm sure things can only get better from here." The photo had barely been taken when Zoe lifted her phone, her pulse still racing. With a quick breath, she hit post. The picture of her and Aiden, his arm slung casually behind her, her smile brighter than she felt, flashed onto her Instagram feed for all to see. She set her phone down, a small, defiant smile tugging at her lips. For the first time in 5 years, she felt like she had taken back a piece of herself. Aiden's smirk was unreadable. 10 minutes isn't going to cut it. Zoe blinked. "That's what I asked for." He leaned closer, voice low. "And I'm asking for an hour. There's a place I know, underground live music, better than this." Her stomach flipped, reckless, dangerous, tempting. "But I'm not exactly dressed for a place like that," she murmured, tugging at the hem of her black dress. Aiden's gaze flicked over her once, then back to her eyes, steady, certain. "You'll fit in just fine, Zoe. Trust me." Her pulse skipped. "How do you know my name?" Hard to miss. He yelled your name while dripping in vintage champagne. Not exactly subtle. "Don't worry, I'm not psychic." Before she could argue, Aiden stood, slipped a few bills on the counter and offered his hand. And before she could think, she took his hand. The club pulsed beneath the city, a hidden cavern alive with red lights and raw guitar riffs. The air vibrated with the sound of live rock from the 90s, Pearl Jam, Guns N' Roses, Nirvana, and Zoe's heart stumbled when she realized she knew every lyric. People greeted Aiden with nods, claps on the back, like he belonged here. Of course he belonged here. He moved through the crowd with easy familiarity, never faltering, never second-guessing, the opposite of John in every way. Zoe, in her black dress and heels, felt awkward at first, clutching her purse like a lifeline. But then Aiden leaned close, his voice cutting through the music. "You know this one, don't you?" It was Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. The opening chords washed over the room and Zoe froze, lips parting in shock. "Of course I do," she whispered, almost to herself. Then, softer, with a catch in her voice, "Actually, this was the first song my dad ever taught me." "Then sing," he said simply, already mouthing the words himself. And she did. At first hesitant, then louder, until she was laughing, shouting the lyrics with him, caught up in the pure ridiculousness of it all. He twirled her once, out of nowhere, his hand firm at her waist, and Zoe nearly tripped on her own heels, but found herself laughing harder than she had in years. For a moment, she forgot John existed, until her phone buzzed. She glanced down. A string of texts lit up the screen. "You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back. Who do you think you are, throwing yourself at some random guy? You're pathetic." Her chest tightened. She looked away, ashamed, as if Aiden might see the words, but his eyes were sharp. He noticed. "Let me guess," he said. "Prince Charming." She swallowed. "He just Won't stop. Aidan plucked the phone from her hand before she could protest. His thumbs moved quickly, his expression perfectly calm. He handed it back a second later. On the screen, a single reply now sat beneath John's barrage. "Sorry, she's busy singing louder than you ever did anything in your life." "Don't wait up!" Zoe's jaw dropped. "You didn't." "I did," Aidan said smoothly, sipping his drink. "And trust me, the best way to deal with a man like that is to act like he doesn't exist. Tonight, he doesn't. Got it?" Her laugh burst out, bubbling and uncontrollable, and for once it wasn't bitter or forced. She shook her head, covering her mouth. "You're insane." "Maybe," Aidan said with that cool smirk, "but you're smiling again." The street was quiet, the hour late. Zoe hugged her arms against the cool air, still buzzing from the night. "I'll take you home," Aidan said at the curb. "You've already done enough," she smiled. "Really, I can manage." "Not happening." His tone was calm, firm. "You trusted me with your night. I walk you to your door. It's a rule." Her brow arched. "And who made that rule?" "My father. Said real men always walk a woman home." Zoe's chest tightened. She whispered, almost to herself, "I wish John had known that." Aidan glanced at her. "He never did?" She hesitated. "No, he usually just put me in a cab, wrote down the license plate." Aidan blinked, then smirked. "Wow, nothing says romance like memorizing taxi numbers." Zoe's laugh slipped out, cheeks warming. "I'd rather memorize your door number than a cab number." This time, her laughter was real. Side by side, they fell into step, his stride steady, hers suddenly lighter. And Zoe couldn't help wondering why it had taken her 5 years to realize how little she'd been given and how strange it felt to receive so much in just one night. They stopped in front of Zoe's apartment building, the street lamps painting a soft glow across her face. For a moment, neither moved. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, suddenly shy again, while he stood a little too close, his eyes lingering as though memorizing the moment. "So," Aidan said at last, voice low, teasing but steady, "I suppose this is the part where I say, maybe one day I'll stop by Sugar Fix, or maybe you'll come hear me on Wednesday at the club." Zoe smiled nervously, her heart doing a strange little leap. "Maybe. I'll try." Her voice softened, gratitude spilling out before she could stop it. "Thank you. For tonight. If it weren't for you, I'd probably be under a blanket crying my eyes out." He tilted his head, that sly smile playing at his lips. "And I got to spend the night with a sweet girl who knows all the right songs and sings them like she means it. I should be the one thanking you." The warmth in his gaze made her pulse skip. He held her eyes a beat longer before adding, softer this time, "Whenever you need help, I'm around." Zoe's breath caught, her eyes shimmered, and she whispered, "Okay." Just then, Aidan lifted a hand, whistled for a cab. One slid to a stop at the curb, headlights washing over them. He opened the door with a simple, practiced ease, then looked back at her one last time. "Good night, Zoe." And just like that, he was gone. Zoe stood on the sidewalk, the night suddenly colder without him beside her. Her smile faltered as she realized she didn't have his number, not even his last name. 3 hours of laughter, of music, of forgetting John completely. 3 hours that felt like a lifetime. But who was Aidan, really? The next morning, Boston was grey and brisk, the kind of morning that smelled faintly of rain and fresh coffee. On a narrow side street, tucked between an old bookstore and a dry cleaner, sat Sugar Fix, Zoe's tiny bakery. 5 tables, pastel chairs, lemon cream walls. Barely room for 20 people. But it was hers. The bell jingled and in breezed Dick, 23, loud, unapologetically himself. His cropped sweater read, "Not today." Satan in glitter, paired with ripped jeans and sneakers, brighter than traffic cones. "Morning, boss lady," he sang, tossing his tote onto a chair. "Still glowing from your romantic dinner with Mr. Wall Street? Or are we back to tragic cupcake fantasy land?" "Dick," Zoe gave him a look. What? He batted his lashes. Did he toast to himself again or finally cry tears of eternal devotion? She fought a smile. I'm your boss, remember? Mm-hmm. He swiped a muffin. And yet here I am, underpaid, overexposed to your sad love life, and single-handedly keeping this place entertaining. Honestly, you should be paying me extra for emotional labor. Zoe shook her head, laughing despite herself. For all his sass, she adored him. She set the muffin tray down and exhaled. For your information, things with John are over. Dick froze, hand mid-bite, then clutched his chest in mock horror. Shut, upper. Don't play with me. You actually dumped Mr. Spreadsheet. Zoe's smile was faint but real. Something like that. Dick squealed so loud the barista at the cafe across the street probably heard it. Finally, Liberation Day! Someone popped the champagne. Oh, wait, you already did, he winked. Zoe groaned, but laughter escaped her anyway. You're impossible. And you love me, he shot back. She rolled her eyes, sliding another tray onto the counter. Unfortunately, the bell jingled, and in came a delivery boy with a massive bouquet of long-stemmed red roses, lacquered with glitter spray until they looked like cement. Zoe froze. For a foolish heartbeat, her mind leapt not to John, but to Aiden. Why would I even think that? She scolded herself, cheeks warm. The boy set the bouquet on the counter, the sharp chemical perfume filling the shop. Zoe pulled the card free, her stomach sinking even before she read it. My love, I love you enough to save you from apologizing. Come to me tonight and we'll have the night of our lives. Her lips tightened. Of course, not an apology, another performance. Dick circled the bouquet, wrinkling his nose. Wow, concrete flowers with a side of toxic fumes. And the award for most self-obsessed apology goes to John Goodman. He mimed applause with a stiff rose. Zoe laughed, despite herself, then scooped up the bouquet and dumped it by the trash. Even his gestures are narcissistic. Totally, Dick said. Glitter roses? Tacky. You deserve better. For the first time in years, Zoe felt it. She was done. The scent of chocolate and buttercream filled Sugar Fix, warm and rich. Zoe slid a tray of dark cakes onto the counter, topping them with swirls of midnight blue frosting and a dusting of gold and silver sugar, tiny galaxies sparkling under the lights. For once, she smiled. This wasn't routine. She felt alive. Last night had lit something in her, and his name was Aiden. Dick appeared, twirling a whisk like a drumstick. Well, if NASA needs catering, we're ready. Cosmic cupcakes, straight from planet Heartbreak. They're called dreams, Zoe said softly. Dick arched a brow. Of course they are. Inspired by the tall, dark stranger who walked you home, I assume? Zoe's cheeks warmed. I don't even know his last name. Dick smirked. Please, you don't need a last name when a guy shows up out of nowhere and plays knight in shining leather jacket. Before she could answer, the bell jingled. Zoe turned and froze. There he was. Aiden. Framed in the doorway, sunlight spilling behind him, hands shoved casually in his pockets as if walking into her world was the most natural thing. His eyes found hers, a faint smile tugging at his lips. For a moment, Zoe forgot how to breathe. Dick broke the silence. Oh my God, he whispered theatrically, clutching Zoe's arm. Speak of the devil, and the devil wears leather jackets. Aiden stepped inside Sugar Fix with lazy confidence, dark jacket catching the light, jaw sharp as if sketched. His gaze swept over the pastel chairs and shimmering dreams cupcakes before landing back on Zoe, in his hand a polished wooden box. Okay, pause, Dick said, circling him like prey. Tell me you're not straight. Excuse me? Aiden blinked, amused. Dick, Zoe hissed, mortified. What? Ground rules, Dick said, unapologetic. Aiden smirked, setting the box on the counter. Relax. First visits deserve a gift, don't they? Zoe lifted the lid. Inside, a tiny music box carved with stars. She twisted the key, and the soft notes of dreams filled the shop. Her breath caught. How did you... You mentioned it last night. Aidan said lightly, though his eyes lingered on her. Thought you'd like to hear it somewhere quieter? Zoe's fingers lingered on the tiny music box, the soft notes of dreams filling the shop. Her chest felt tight, overwhelmed by the simple, perfect thoughtfulness of it. I mean, she breathed, lifting her gaze to his. How did you even find Sugar Fix? Aidan's smirk deepened, just a hint of mischief in his eyes. Google Maps, he said simply. Dick groaned dramatically from behind the counter. Of course, romance is dead. But Zoe couldn't stop smiling. For a moment, Zoe forgot Dick, forgot the cupcakes, forgot the entire world. She only heard the delicate melody, soft and haunting, and the look in Aidan's eyes that made her chest tighten. Dick broke the silence, fanning himself dramatically. Oh, great! He's hot, he's polite, and he brings gifts that make me cry. Just kill me now. Truth is, Aidan said, voice low, after last night, waiting too long to see you again didn't feel right. So, here I am. His smile tilted. And also, he tapped the counter. I have a confession. I think I might already be a cupcake addict. Consider this my first meeting. Hi, my name's Aidan, and I'm addicted to Sugar Fix. Zoe laughed despite herself. You're ridiculous. She slid one of the fresh cupcakes toward him. Here's your fix. Coffee too? He nodded. Always. Soon he was seated at one of the pastel tables, cupcake and steaming coffee before him. He studied the shimmering frosting, head tilted. Beautiful, he murmured. Then, softer. Funny. It reminds me of last night. Zoe's breath caught. God, did I make it that obvious? Aidan glanced up, that lazy smile tugging at his lips. Zoe looked away quickly, fumbling with napkins just to hide the flush in her cheeks. His gaze drifted to the glitter-sprayed roses shoved into the corner. Wow. Those looked like they survived a nuclear blast. Romantic apology? Before Zoe could answer, Dick sniffed loudly, fake tears in his eyes. Then he leaned in, whispering, So you ditched Mr. Spreadsheet Marxist and scored, what should we call him? His grin widened. Captain Jawline. Perfect. One night and you bagged Captain Jawline. Respect, Zoe swatted him with a dish towel. Shut up. Dick only smirked. Hey, I'm proud of you. A man that pretty deserves a nickname. Aidan took another bite of the cupcake, savoring it, then set it down carefully, as if it were worth more than gold. His gaze wandered slowly around the shop, over the pastel chairs, the tiny tables, the scuffed counter. Finally, his eyes returned to Zoe. This place is sweet, he said, his tone thoughtful, but with a few changes. It could be more you, your style, warm, inviting, personal, but elegant at the same time. Zoe blinked, caught off guard. My style? And you'd know what that is? Aidan smirked faintly. I notice things. Comes with a good eye. He gestured toward the counter. For instance, this front display. If you had a sleeker counter with glass that shows your cupcakes like they're jewels, it would let people see the care you put into each one. The colors? I'd keep them soft but richer, something romantic, maybe dusty rose or muted teal, warm but not childish. His gaze softened as he looked at her again. Your style, it's vintage touches, little details that make people smile. Romantic but grounded. Comfort without losing charm. The kind of space where someone can walk in from a rainy street, sit down and feel like they've come home. Zoe's breath caught, her chest tightening. Is that really how he sees me? Wow, she murmured half under her breath. I've always wanted to hire a designer, but I never had the money, and you just described exactly what I dreamed of. The bell over the door clanged violently. Zoe's stomach dropped. John, she breathed, what are you doing here? Cologne clouded the air as he strode in. Dick coughed theatrically, waving a hand. Subtle. John ignored him, smile fixed. Darling, you got my flowers, didn't you, gorgeous? And I came with another surprise you'll love. His eyes skimmed over Aidan at the table, dismissing him before he grabbed Zoe's hand and spun her in a sudden twirl. She stumbled, furious. John, you haven't set foot in here for 2 years. He shrugged. Work, but this morning I thought, my Zoe will be sad. I should cheer her up. Her stare was ice. Then his gaze snagged on the glittering bouquet shoved onto the trash. His voice rose. What the hell is this? I paid $300 for those roses. They were supposed to be in your window display. Not our aesthetic, Mr. Oddman, Dick cut in smoothly. Maybe if you knew her, you'd realize Zoe's a lily girl. It's Goodman, and watch your mouth, dickhead. Zoe's voice sliced through. It's over, John. Last night I told you. His jaw tightened. No, it's not over until I say it is. Aidan finally stood, calm but edged. She's not enjoying this. Back off. Recognition flickered. You, last night, who the hell do you think you are? Aidan, don't, Zoe pleaded. I'll handle it. His jaw flexed, but he nodded once, lips curving into a thin smile. All right. He lifted his cup in a mock toast. Thanks for the coffee, Zoe. Then he set it down carefully, turned, and walked out. The bell jingled softly as the door shut behind him, gentle, almost at odds with the storm he left behind. Zoe's heart dropped with the sound. The room suddenly felt colder. John sneered. This is what you're throwing me away for. I came to tell you I was going to introduce you to my mother this weekend. Maybe you don't deserve it. Before Zoe could answer, Dick pressed a lemonade into her hand. She didn't hesitate. Splash. The drink soaked John's immaculate shirt. Enough. I don't care about your mother or your flowers. I'm done. His eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. And that shirt, $1,500. Expect the bill. He stormed out. Silence. Then Dick's sing-song voice. Bye-bye, Mr. Wrongman. By the third morning, Zoe found herself staring at the empty corner table where Aidan had sat, coffee in hand, as if the imprint of him might still linger in the wood grain. But he didn't come back. Not Monday, not Tuesday. And that, more than anything, made her angry at herself. 3 hours together, and what do I know about him? That he plays on Wednesdays, that he likes sarcasm, that he can make me laugh so hard my ribs hurt. And that's it. I didn't even ask his last name. She slammed the pastry case shut a little harder than necessary. Dick, perched on the counter like a cat that had claimed a throne, arched a brow. What's with the pastry abuse, boss lady? Zoe muttered. I don't even know him. Not really. Just that he plays at some club. Dick perked up instantly. Ooh, now we're talking. Which club? She hesitated. The Rusty Halo. He was already pulling out his phone, thumbs flying. Perfect. Don't worry, Gen Z FBI's on the case. Within seconds, he had the club's Instagram pulled up, scrolling past flyers, neon signs, sweaty band shots. Then he froze, his mouth curling into a grin. Well, 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 look who it is. Zoe leaned in, and there he was. Aidan. Caught mid-song under a wash of blue light, guitar strapped across his chest. His face was tilted toward the mic, hair falling into his eyes, sweat glistening at his temple. Her breath hitched. God, he looks different, like another version of him, untouchable. Dick zoomed in and snorted. And check the tag, not his real name, of course. Drum roll, please. He tapped the caption with relish. At Ash Steele official, Zoe blinked. Ash Steele? Dick burst out laughing. Oh my God, that's his stage name? Ash Steele sounds like a guy who sells cologne on billboards shirtless, or like the villain in a soap opera. Coming this fall, Ash Steele. Zoe bit back a smile, torn between amusement and a nervous flutter in her stomach. It's not that bad. Dick wagged a finger. It's that bad, but also kind of hot. Very Captain Jawline of him. So what's the move, boss? You gonna click follow? Her finger hovered over the screen before she pulled it back like it was fire. "No, that's stalkerish. If he wanted me to know, he would have told me." Dick groaned, rolling his eyes so hard Zoe thought they might stick. "You millennials. So much pride. For us, hitting follow is like saying hi in the street. Totally normal. Nobody dies." But Zoe shook her head, jaw set. "No. If I want to know who he really is, I'll ask him, in person." A small, secret thrill shot through her as she said it. She looked at the photo again, ash steel, bathed in blue light, utterly unreachable, and whispered, "This Wednesday." By Wednesday evening, Zoe knew she couldn't go alone, so she called the one person guaranteed to have an opinion about everything, her younger sister, Ava. At 21, Ava was the opposite of Zoe in every way, spoiled where Zoe was patient, sharp-tongued where Zoe was soft. She thought Zoe had lost her mind for leaving John, but curiosity and the lure of drama had made her agree to come. The rusty halo wasn't Ava's scene. Its dim lights and brick walls hummed with history, the kind that smelled of beer and old wood. Zoe loved it instantly. Ava wrinkled her nose the moment they stepped inside. "God, Zoe," she muttered, tugging her faux fur jacket closer. "What is this? Time travel night? Did we land in 1973? Where's the VIP lounge?" Zoe slid onto a bar stool. "It's called live music, Ava. Instruments, lyrics, feelings. You know, before TikTok remixes." Ava smirked. "Feelings are overrated. Champagne service in VIP, and that's real poetry." Zoe laughed despite herself, but her eyes kept sweeping the stage. Her heart jumped at every strum, every mic check, and then, there he was. Aidan stepped into the spotlight, guitar slung over his shoulder, sleeves rolled. The first notes, Nirvana then Radiohead, cut through the room. Ava groaned something about dad music, but Zoe was transfixed. Halfway through, his eyes found hers, just for a second, long enough to steal her breath. Then the first notes of Dreams filled the air. He remembered. When the set ended, applause roared. Ava clapped lazily, already bored. Zoe couldn't move because Aidan was walking straight toward them. He stopped at the bar, gaze locking with Zoe's. "Hi, Zoe." "Hi," she whispered back. As regulars clapped him on the back, Ava leaned in, perfume sharp as her words. "So this is the guy you ditched John for, really? A guitarist in a basement instead of Mr. Future CEO?" Zoe flushed. "Ava, please." But Ava wasn't done. She turned to Aidan, eyes glinting. "So tell me, where do you live?" Aidan's smile was calm, unbothered. "Not far from here. A loft. And this is what you do? Just play guitar in bars like this?" "Among other things," he said smoothly. "But yeah, I play. I design sometimes too." Ava tilted her head, unimpressed. "And how much do you even make doing that?" Zoe hissed. Ava, mortified. But Aidan just sipped his drink, his gaze steady, enough to keep the lights on. More than enough, actually. "But truth is, I don't play for the money." That shut Ava up for a beat. Then her eyes flicked toward a tall man across the room, ordering champagne with a flourish. Her smirk returned. "Well, at least you're entertaining, excuse me." She slid off her stool toward her new target. Zoe groaned, face hot. "I'm sorry about her." Aidan chuckled. "You two definitely aren't cut from the same cloth." Zoe sighed. "No, not really." But when Aidan's eyes met hers again, the whole room seemed to fade. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, "but I'm glad you came." Zoe laughed softly. "Looks like you're kind of a big deal here." Behind her, Ava rolled her eyes. Zoe cleared her throat quickly. "Right, this is my sister, Ava, Gen Z, full-time menace. Sorry in advance." "Charmed," Ava tossed back over her shoulder as she disappeared toward the champagne guy. Aidan just grinned and waved for drinks. "Then let me buy you both one. Bribery helps with first impressions." The rusty halo pulsed with sound, raw guitar riffs, the steady thump of drums, voices rising in chorus. Zoe let Aidan take her hand, and before she realized it, he was leading her into the small crowd at the center of the floor. The band launched into "Come As You Are." Zoe laughed nervously at first, but Aidan spun her with surprising grace, pulling her back against him just in time for the chorus. She found herself singing along, her voice mingling with his. "Wait, you know this one?" he teased. "Dangerous," he added with a grin. "You might out-hipster me." She laughed so hard she nearly lost the beat, but he steadied her, his hand warm at her waist. Then the music shifted, "Losing My Religion." The energy slowed. Aidan pulled her closer, their foreheads brushing as they swayed. The ache in Zoe's chest was both painful and thrilling. Outside, as a cab's headlights washed over the curb, Zoe dug into her purse. Tearing a corner from a receipt, she scribbled down her number before pressing it into his hand. Aidan looked at it, brow arched. "Wow, a real phone number on paper. Do you also own a rotary phone at home, vintage girl?" Zoe bit her lip. "It's charming." He held the cab door for her, then leaned in. First, a kiss on her cheek, then, unable to resist, the briefest brush of his lips against hers, soft, quick, electric. He slipped the paper into his pocket. "I'll call you Zoe." And, for the first time in years, she believed someone. The next afternoon, Zoe's phone buzzed while she was wiping down the sugar fix counter. She nearly dropped the rag when she saw his name. Her lips curved before she could stop them. So he hadn't disappeared after all. "How about dinner at my place tonight?" There was a beat. Then another message popped up. "I'm actually a pretty decent cook. I'll make you one of my special recipes. Just don't expect much when it comes to dessert." That evening, Aidan pulled up in front of her apartment, stepping out of his car instead of honking. He opened the passenger door for her with an easy, old-fashioned courtesy that made her cheeks warm. When they reached his place, Zoe's breath caught. It wasn't the penthouse she'd half imagined for a man like John, nor the shabby bachelor pad she'd expected from a guitarist. Instead, it was something else entirely, an industrial loft in a converted warehouse, walls of exposed brick and steel beams, softened by warm lighting, worn leather chairs, and shelves of vinyl records stacked beside battered guitars. The space had an edge, grunge, raw, but it was curated with such taste that it felt instantly like him, artistic, intentional, unexpected. A drafting table stood by the tall window, cluttered with pencils, rulers, and sheets of half-sketched buildings. Zoe drifted toward it, curiosity tugging at her. "You draw?" Aidan gave a little shrug, sliding his hands into his pockets. "Since I was a kid. Buildings, spaces, anything I can imagine on paper. It's just something I like to do." There was more in his voice, a quiet depth, but he left it there. The loft already smelled faintly of garlic and rosemary. By the time she set her coat aside, he was plating something creamy, rich, decadent. "This looks professional," she teased. "Don't be too impressed," he said with a sly smile. "It's just risotto, truffle oil, wild mushrooms. Simple stuff." Simple stuff. The scent was intoxicating, earthy, elegant. She had only ever seen dishes like this on TV, not on a weeknight in a converted loft. When he slid the plates in front of them, she shook her head. "Okay, I officially underestimated you." "Good," he replied, leaning back. "I like surprising you." Later, while he opened another bottle of wine, Zoe wandered into the kitchen and spotted a basket of ripe peaches. She lifted a brow. "Mind if I improvise dessert?" Minutes later, the skillet hissed with butter and sugar. She spooned the golden slices into 2 small bowls, crowned with whipped cream. Nothing fancy, just warm, sweet, comforting. Aidan took a bite, eyes widening. "You're kidding, this is incredible." Don't expect me to compete with truffle risotto every night, she said, mock serious. I don't need competition, his voice softened. Just company. They lingered, wine glasses half full. The city hum outside, filling the silence. Zoe tilted her head. You said you were out of town last week. What do you do during the day, Aiden? He fiddled with his glass. My dad runs a firm. Sometimes I stop in, help out. Nothing worth talking about. The vagueness struck her, but the warmth in his eyes disarmed suspicion. She let it go. Instead, he leaned closer. You know, Zoe, that night at the restaurant, deciding to sit at that bar instead of going home, might have been one of the best decisions of my life. I like being around you, more than I expected. Her pulse leapt. His hand brushed hers on the table, lingered, then stilled. She didn't pull away. Dinner plates sat forgotten on the coffee table, candles burning low. Aiden had taken up an unplugged guitar, strumming softly. When he missed a chord, Zoe laughed. For someone who plays in front of a crowd, you're strangely terrible up close. He arched a brow. Only when I'm distracted. By what? His gaze flicked to her. You. The air shifted. She looked down, smiling despite herself. He set the guitar aside and moved to the couch, not too close. Not yet. They talked. Not about schedules or small talk, but real things. Her Sundays baking with her dad, his boyhood sketches of buildings when other kids were drawing superheroes. Each word pulled them closer, knees brushing her laughter, softer now. Her hand lingered on the cushion. His fingers found it, tentative but deliberate. When she finally looked at him, she saw the same question she felt in her chest. The kiss was slow at first, almost cautious, then deepened quickly, hungry, inevitable. Her glass tipped forgotten on the couch, her hand rising to his shoulder. One kiss lingered into another, and the loft folded around them. Candlelight, the hum of the city, the dizzy certainty this was the beginning of something neither could stop. They stumbled, laughing, shedding layers, until the night blurred into warmth and breath and tangled sheets. Sunlight poured across the loft, pale and soft. Zoe stirred, half buried in the sheets, only to feel Aiden's arm tighten around her. His lips brushed her hair. Morning, he murmured. She turned toward him, smiling despite herself, their noses brushing before another kiss. For a fleeting moment, it felt so easy, so right. When she slipped into the shower, Aiden leaned back on the couch, still smiling, until her phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up where he sat. John. Bought the sofa. Set you liked. Sending a picture. Can't wait for you to see it. Her phone lit face up on the counter. The preview filled the screen before he could look away. A glossy photo of designer furniture followed. The warmth drained from his chest. Maybe she wasn't free of him. Maybe she wasn't sure. By the time Zoe emerged, damp hair curling against her cheeks, Aiden was pulling on his jacket. I've got to head out of town for a few days, he said lightly, though his eyes didn't meet hers. Zoe tilted her head, teasing. You really do love being mysterious, don't you? He smiled faintly. Something like that. Something in his tone, too careful, too vague, clung to Zoe's chest like a shadow. Zoe hesitated, then forced a small smile. In that case, I'll head out too. I should get back to the shop. On the street below, the city buzzed with its usual noise, but all Zoe could hear was the faint click of the loft door, closing behind her. She told herself not to overthink it. Still, why did it feel like goodbye? Zoe's chin rested on her palm as she leaned against the counter, eyes drifting toward the door for what felt like the 100th time that day. 3 weeks, 3 whole weeks, and not a word from Aiden. Not a text, not a call. Just silence. Dick, ever dramatic, popped up from behind the espresso machine, wearing her spare apron like a sash. Breaking news, he declared in his best newscaster voice. Local cupcake queen seen sighing into the void, awaiting the return of Captain Jawline. Tune in at 6 for more tragic updates. Zoe tried not to smile, but it cracked through anyway. You're impossible. Impossible. Honey, I'm the only reason you haven't fully fossilized into that counter. He flicked a towel at her, and that was when the door chimed. Two people stepped in, men in perfectly tailored suits, polished shoes, clicking against the tile. They looked startlingly out of place in Sugar Fix, their briefcases and leather portfolios clashing with the pastel frosting and the scent of vanilla in the air. "Good morning," one of them said smoothly. "We're from Lumen Design Group. We're launching a new campaign here in Boston, selecting 3 small businesses to feature. We'll be renovating and redesigning them, completely free of charge, as part of our project." Zoe blinked, straightening. "Wait, you mean here? You'd renovate this place?" The second man smiled reassuringly. "Exactly. Your shop caught our eye. It has character, warmth. We'd love to make it shine even more." Her heartbeat kicked up. "And this wouldn't cost me anything?" "Not a cent. All we'd ask is your permission to document the transformation for our campaign." Dick's eyes nearly bugged out of his head. "Did you just say free makeover? Girl, this is like Queer Eye meets Extreme Home Makeover, but for cupcakes. Say yes before they realize they've walked into the wrong bakery." Zoe barely heard him. Her pulse quickened as the words sank in. Free renovation. Her shop. Lucy O'Brien closed her leather portfolio and offered Zoe a warm, professional smile. "All we'd ask," she said, "is that you tag our firm and share a few posts on Instagram. You do have an Instagram account, don't you?" Zoe's eyes flicked toward Dick. He was already standing with his arms crossed, like the question had been directed at him. "She does," he answered before Zoe could, "but it's tragic. Don't worry, I'll fix it." After Lucy and her colleague left, the shop felt strangely alive, buzzing with possibility. The smell of vanilla and sugar curled through the air, and Zoe pressed a hand to her apron, heart thumping. Her tiny bakery, her barely making rent bakery, might finally have a chance to become something bigger. "All right," Dick announced, clapping his hands. "From now on, I'm your social media manager. Photos, reels, captions, hashtags, I've got it all covered." Zoe laughed. "We can't afford a social media manager, you know that." "Oh, I know," Dick said, his grin slow and wicked. "Which is why I'm offering a very reasonable exchange." Zoe raised a brow. "Reasonable? That already sounds suspicious. What is it?" "Once a week," he declared, pausing for drama. "My friends come in and eat whatever cupcakes they want. Free, unlimited, no rules." Zoe stared at him, torn between horror and amusement. Finally, she broke into laughter. "Dick, normally I would say absolutely not." "Normally," he echoed, tossing his hair back like he was on a runway. "But," she continued, still laughing, "this time I'll allow it, because for once you didn't ask for something just for yourself, and you actually managed to impress me." Dick threw both hands in the air like he'd just won an award. "Yes, Sugar Fix is about to become a social media legend. Trust me, boss, this is our moment." Sugar Fix was closed for the first time since Zoe had opened its doors. The renovation crew had taken over, sketches and swatches spread across her counters, sawdust in the air. With 10 days of silence ahead, Zoe packed a weekend bag and drove to her parents' house just outside Boston. It was the same house she'd grown up in, modest and steady, her father's garden still neat, her mother still critical. "So, the shop is closed?" her mother asked. "For renovations. A week, maybe 10 days, Zoe replied. Her mother's brow lifted. "Maybe it'll give you time to think. About your future. About John. He was a good man. Vacations, promotions. In 5 years you could have been living in Back Bay." Zoe drew a slow breath. "Mom, I don't want that. Wealth to me isn't an address. It's laughing with someone I love, road trips in a beat-up camper, talking for hours. That's what matters." Her mother sniffed. "Dreams don't pay the bills." "Neither does a narcissist," Zoe said flatly. "I waited 2 years for John to propose. I'm done waiting." Silence fell. Her father looked up at her then, eyes soft with quiet pride. "Holy freaking cupcake," Dick whispered, clutching her arm. "This place looks like a Netflix set. We're going viral, babe." Sugarfix was barely recognizable. Lace curtains and the hand-painted sign still lingered, but everything gleamed now. Warm lights spilled over polished counters, dusky rose walls softened the space, and glass displays made her cupcakes look like jewels. It was still Zoe's, only elevated. Lucy O'Brien handed Zoe the brass keys with a smile. "All yours. Just tag us on Instagram sometimes. That's payment enough." Zoe laughed in disbelief. "I don't even win scratch-offs, and now this." "Maybe someone's rooting for you," Lucy said, before leaving. Within hours, Dick was flooding Instagram with photos. Customers were lining up at the door, and phone orders wouldn't stop. Zoe pressed her hands to her temples, overwhelmed. "This is insane. We're 3 times busier already." "Correction," Dick said smugly. "Wait until my friend's TikTok live hits, then it's 4 times. Zoe burst into helpless laughter, throwing her hands up. "God help me, how am I supposed to bake fast enough for this?" But at night, when the ovens cooled, the emptiness pressed harder. 3 weeks, and not a word from Aiden. Zoe gave in one evening, typing out a message with shaky hands. "Hey, you've been gone for days. Just wanted to check. Are you okay?" She hit send. The grey check marks stared back. Hours passed. The message wasn't even seen. 1 week later, Sugarfix was running at full speed. Zoe lived in flour-stained aprons, running on coffee and adrenaline. Dick had convinced her to buy a tiny smart car for deliveries, but he wasn't thrilled about being drafted as a part-time driver. "This is what my life has come to," he groaned, climbing into the car with boxes stacked to the roof. "Me, the Carrie Bradshaw of Boston, downgraded to UPS chic. Someone take a picture." Zoe snorted, shoving a tray at him. "Shut up and drive, Bradshaw." "Fine," he muttered, already snapping a selfie. "At least I'm the hottest delivery boy this city's ever seen." The order came in on a Wednesday morning. A countryside engagement party just outside Boston. 200 cupcakes, each piped like roses. Zoe stared at the request, her stomach twisting. 200, she muttered. "Who even eats this many cupcakes?" Dick grinned. "Rich people. They order in bulk, then take one bite and toss the rest." "Don't worry, babe. We'll charge them full price." By Saturday, the little smart car was bursting with boxes, the sweet scent of sugar filling the air. Zoe sat in the passenger seat, hands tight in her lap. She tried not to think about Aiden. Tried not to think about the unanswered message still sitting grey on her phone. The estate was breathtaking, fairy lights draped over ancient oaks, a white tent glowing like a lantern in the dusk. Music floated through the air, laughter spilling from the veranda. For a moment, Zoe forgot to breathe. "This is insane," she whispered. Dick, already snapping photos, winked. "Welcome to rich people Disneyland." Zoe balanced the last tray on the garden table, smoothing the linen cloth beneath the polished tiers of rose-frosted cupcakes. The evening hummed with music and laughter, drifting across the manicured lawn. For a moment, she allowed herself to smile. Her little creations looked like jewels under the fairy lights. Then she heard it, a ripple of laughter, deeper, louder than the rest, carrying from the far side of the garden. She turned her head, curious at first. A cluster of men and women stood near the veranda, champagne flutes catching the glow of the lanterns. One of them, his back to her, drew the attention of the group. He moved easily, confidently, as if the night itself bent to him. Zoe narrowed her eyes, tilting her head. Something about his frame, the way his shoulders filled the crisp lines of his suit. And then he turned. Her breath caught. It was Aiden. But not the Aiden she knew. Not the tousled guitarist with rolled-up sleeves at the rusty halo. Not the stranger at the bar with a crooked smile and calloused fingers. This man was sleek, immaculate, his jaw sharp beneath the glow of chandeliers, his suit tailored to perfection. He laughed easily, glass in hand, surrounded by glittering women and powerful men. For one dizzying second, Zoe's mind scrambled. Does he have a twin? No, it was definitely him. Her chest tightened, the world tilting. "Hey!" Dick's voice jolted her, coming up beside her. He followed her gaze and let out a low whistle. Holy jawline. That's your mystery boy? Damn. Look at him, Mr. Jet Set, and he seems rich, really rich. Zoe turned sharply toward him, but her knees wobbled, her hands trembling around the tray. Dick's smirk faded when he saw her face, ashen, wide-eyed, lips parted in shock. "Zoe," he started, but it was too late. The tray slipped. Dozen of frosted roses tumbled in slow motion, splattering across the grass in pink and white ruin. Gasps rippled from nearby guests. Zoe's heart plummeted as buttercream smeared across her shoes. Heat flushed through her, not just from humiliation, but from something worse. Betrayal. Because the man she thought she'd known was nothing like the one standing there now. She bolted past the curious stares, past the whispering guests, until she found a marble hallway and ducked into the powder room. The scent of roses and expensive perfume filled the air. Zoe gripped the porcelain sink, her reflection blurred by tears threatening to fall. She splashed cold water on her face, willing herself to breathe. That's when the voices drifted in. Two women, sleek dresses and glittering jewelry, chatting as they fixed their lipstick at the mirror. "So, how's it going with Aiden?" one asked casually, adjusting her diamond earring. The other gave a small, secret smile. "It's new, but promising. He's a little guarded, but I like that. Give it time, I think it'll heat up." Her friend laughed lightly. "Honey, don't let him slip away. Guys like him, rich, handsome, single, Boston doesn't have many. You've got to lock that down." The words hit Zoe like a blade. Her breath hitched, her hands trembling against the sink. Promising, serious, guarded. Each syllable cut deeper, ripping away the fragile hope she'd been clinging to. She stumbled out before the tears could fall, heels clicking across the marble floor. But outside, the cool night air hit her like a wall. She couldn't stop them now. The tears spilled hot and fast. Behind her, the laughter of the party faded. Ahead, only the gleam of headlights and the frantic pounding of her own heart. Then, the voice carried across the lawn, low, unsure, searching. "Zoe." She froze for half a second, breath catching in her throat. He'd seen her. She didn't turn. She couldn't. Instead, she walked faster, her bag clutched tight, tears blurring the glowing lamps into streaks of gold. "Zoe!" This time louder, desperate. She glanced over her shoulder, just once. Aiden was striding through the crowd, breaking away from the circle of glittering guests, his eyes locked on her like he wasn't sure until that moment it was really her. When she broke into a run, so did he. "Zoe, wait!" The crunch of his shoes on gravel thundered behind her, each step pulling him closer. She fumbled with the keys, yanked the door open, and slid inside. For the briefest heartbeat, she looked at him through the glass, his hand half raised, his face raw with something between anguish and guilt. Then she started the engine. The car lurched forward, gravel spitting out from the tires. Aiden stopped short, chest heaving, the tail lights streaking red across his face as she sped into the night. He stood there, alone in the driveway, party lights glowing behind him, his jaw clenched and his eyes dark with a grief he couldn't hide. And for the first time, the mask of mystery slipped. Aiden looked exactly what he was, devastated, and maybe just a little too late. Sugarfix was dark, lit only by the faint amber glow of the display case. Zoe sat on a stool behind the counter, her shoulders shaking, tears dripping into her palms. "How could I be this stupid?" she whispered to herself. "I left a narcissist, only to fall for a liar." I threw myself into Aiden's arms the second I walked away from John. God, what was I thinking? Who even was he? Why did he show me a face that wasn't real? The bell above the door jingled, startling her. Boss?" Dick's voice cut through the silence. He stood in the doorway, hair messy, jacket wrinkled. "Do you realize you left me 40 minutes outside the city, in the middle of nowhere?" Zoe looked up, her eyes red. "Oh, God, Dick, I'm so sorry. I panicked. I had to get out of there. I was selfish. I shouldn't have left you." Dick's lips pressed into a thin line. Then he tilted his chin toward the doorway behind him. "Yeah, well, you wouldn't have seen me again if he hadn't brought me back." Zoe's head snapped up, and there he was, Aidan, just standing in the doorway of her shop, framed by the glow of the street lamp outside. Dick slipped past them, muttering as he went, "Guess tonight's special guest isn't Mr. Jawline, more like Mr. Complication." He shot Zoe a look, then ducked out into the night, leaving them alone. Aidan stepped closer, his voice low. "Zoe, I'm sorry. For the way it happened. For everything. I was going to come back to you." Zoe's laugh was sharp, bitter. "Oh, of course, nearly a month later. What was it, Aidan? Out of the country. Lost your phone. Too busy playing Jet Set Prince to answer a single message." Her hands trembled as she wiped at her cheeks. "Go ahead. Tell me the excuse. I'm sure you've got plenty." He flinched, but moved closer. "It wasn't like that. That night, it meant something to me. I never wanted to make you feel worthless." Her throat burned. She cut him off, her voice cold. "Don't flatter yourself. It was just one night. I only wanted to hurt John, and you were convenient, that's all." Aidan froze, staring at her as if the words had punched the air out of him. "Zoe, what are you saying?" "I'm saying it didn't matter," she bit out. Her eyes gleamed with tears. "I'm saying John and I are back together, so you don't have to feel guilty. There's nothing here for you." For a long moment he just looked at her. Confusion, hurt, disbelief etched into his face. His jaw tightened, his lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Finally, he exhaled, slow and heavy, biting down on his lip. "Okay, if that's what you want." And with that, he turned and left. The bell jingled softly as the door swung shut. Dick reappeared almost instantly, arms crossed, eyes blazing. "I couldn't walk away without hearing all that. Zoe, have you lost your damn mind? Why would you lie to him like that?" Her chest heaved as fresh tears streamed down her face. "Because, Dick, he already has someone else. I heard it with my own ears. Some perfect girl talking about how promising it all was. And he had the nerve to come here and give me explanations." Her voice cracked. "No, he doesn't get that. He doesn't get me." She buried her face in her hands, sobs racking her shoulders as Dick stood helplessly nearby, watching his friend unravel. Zoe was still wiping at her eyes when Dick leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her like she'd completely lost it. Dick let out a slow breath. "You want to know something? On the drive back, Mr. Complicated Jawline asked me if you and John were back together." Zoe's head jerked up. "What?" "Yep." Dick nodded, eyes narrowing. "I told him no. Straight up. Because that's the truth. But it was eating at him, you could tell. The idea of you still having one foot in John's world, it was messing with his head." Zoe's stomach twisted. "And then," Dick went on, his mouth curling into a wry grin, "you went full diva mode and basically confirmed his worst suspicion. Congratulations, Zoe. You're a legend at torching relationships. If there was an award for self-sabotage, you'd win it in a ball gown." Her lips trembled, fresh tears spilling before she could stop them. "That's not fair." "Fair?" Dick shook his head. "Look, if you really want to be done with him, fine. Own it. But if you don't, then congratulations. You just slammed the door shut yourself." 3 days later, the afternoon sun slanted through the sugar-fix windows when Lucy O'Brien walked in, crisp blazer, warm smile. "Zoe," she said, arms open, "how are you holding up? Still happy with the renovation?" Zoe hugged her back, laughing breathlessly. Happy! Lucy! I can't even keep up with the orders. Business has doubled, maybe tripled. I'm still in shock. I don't even know how to thank you. Or Lumien. Lucy's smile softened. Zoe, there's something you should probably know. Zoe tilted her head. What do you mean? Our firm is tied to a larger architecture company owned by one of the most talented architects I've ever worked for. He's brilliant, honest, a real gentleman. When he saw Sugarfix, he loved it. He's the one who personally sent me here. It wasn't about profit or a contract. This project was special for you. Zoe's brows furrowed. Her voice dropped. Wait, so you mean it wasn't just random luck? He chose this? Lucy nodded gently. Exactly. He wanted this place to shine, said it deserved it. Zoe blinked fast, her throat tight. Then I owe him. I should thank him in person. It's the least I can do. I think that's a wonderful idea, Lucy said warmly. If you're free, come by my office tomorrow. I'll introduce you. She hesitated, then added casually, By the way, were you at that country house last weekend? The engagement party. I could have sworn I saw you, and the cupcakes gave you away. Zoe's stomach dropped. You were there too? God, yeah. That order was huge. Let's just say the night didn't exactly end well for me. Lucy studied her, curiosity flickering. What happened? Zoe forced a smile. It's nothing, don't worry about it. But then, almost without thinking, she whispered, Lucy, do you happen to know someone named Aiden? Plays guitar sometimes, calls himself a musician. A slow smile tugged at Lucy's lips. Yes, Zoe, I know Aiden. I've known him a very long time. Zoe swallowed hard. If I asked you what kind of man he is, would that be strange? Lucy reached across the counter, taking Zoe's hand. Not strange at all. Aiden is one of the kindest, most genuine men I've ever met. Charming, yes, but not careless. He doesn't give himself away easily, and he doesn't chase every woman who looks at him. If he spent time with you, Zoe, believe me, he felt something real. Zoe's eyes burned. We only went out a couple of times. It didn't work out. Lucy tilted her head knowingly. Aiden is selective. He believes in love. If he walked away, it wasn't because you didn't matter. Quite the opposite. Zoe pressed her lips together, unable to answer. Lucy stood, smoothing her jacket. So, tomorrow, my office. You'll meet him yourself. Zoe's pulse spiked. Lucy, one last thing. Who owns the company? Who's the man behind all this? Lucy only smiled, her eyes glinting with something between warmth and mischief. You'll see tomorrow, Zoe. From behind the counter, Dick popped up like he'd been there the whole time, chin resting on his hand. Boss, he said deadpan, I think you should send him a box of those Dreams cupcakes. You know, the star of the night ones. If we've got a secret admirer this classy and generous, seems only fair we thank him with sugar. Zoe blinked at him, half laughing, half dazed. That's, actually not a bad idea, Dick. He smirked, already scribbling something on a notepad. Of course it's not, it's me. But Zoe's smile faded into thought. She leaned back against the counter, staring at the rows of freshly frosted cupcakes. It's just strange, she murmured. Out of all the places he could have noticed, why mine? Why me? Feels almost too kind to be real. Dick shrugged. Guess the universe still has a few decent people left. Zoe let out a soft, disbelieving laugh. Yeah, I guess it does. The next afternoon, Zoe stood in the lobby of Lumion Studios, a sleek glass tower that stretched into the Boston skyline. Dressed in her best navy dress and heels, clutching a white box tied with ribbon, inside a dozen Dreams cupcakes, she tried to steady her breath. Lucy appeared from the reception desk and hugged her warmly. Zoe, you look wonderful. Come on, Let's head upstairs. He has no idea you're coming, so it'll be a surprise. Oh, I don't want to intrude, Zoe began nervously. Lucy laughed. Intrude? Trust me, you'll make his day. They stepped into the elevator. Zoe's heart hammered as the numbers climbed. 10th floor, executive offices. The doors opened to a space that looked like a magazine spread. Sleek wood, glass walls, soft lighting, artful models of buildings displayed like sculptures. Every corner breathed wealth, vision, design. Zoe's eyes swept over it all, awe tugging at her chest. Lucy walked her down the polished corridor until they stopped in front of a wide mahogany door. A brass plaque gleamed on the wall. For a moment, Lucy hesitated. She turned to Zoe. You should know, the owner of this firm prefers to stay somewhat private. But I thought you deserved to meet him. He doesn't know you're here yet, so let me step in first. Zoe nodded, trying to quiet the rush in her chest. Lucy slipped inside. A muffled voice carried out, then silence. Zoe's gaze drifted down, and that's when she saw it. The name etched into the brass plate, Aidan McSteele. Her breath caught. Aidan? What are the odds? Before she could think, Lucy's voice called from inside, bright and warm. Come in, sweetheart. Zoe's hand tightened on the cupcake box as she pushed the door open, and there he was. Aidan, rising from behind a broad glass desk, dark suit perfectly tailored, sunlight pouring in behind him. Their eyes collided, wide, startled. Lucy gave Zoe's shoulder a little squeeze, her smile knowing. I'll leave you two. And just like that, the door clicked shut, leaving Zoe and Aidan staring across the room, two worlds colliding again, with nothing but silence and a box of cupcakes between them. Aidan's head snapped up the moment she entered. Zoe? His voice was startled, disbelieving. Her chest tightened. It was you? You're the one who had Sugar Fix renovated? You're an architect? Aidan moved toward her quickly, his hands open, almost pleading. Please, Zoe, sit down. Lucy wasn't supposed to bring you here. I asked her to keep it private. I never wanted you to find out like this. Please, don't feel blindsided. Still clutching the cupcake box, Zoe lowered herself into the chair across from his desk, her eyes wide, emotions tangled. He sank into the seat opposite her, studying her face with an intensity that made her want to look away. Why? She asked at last, her voice breaking. Why would you do that for me? Why Sugar Fix? Aidan dropped his gaze, his voice low. Because you deserve the best kitchen, the best shop, the best everything. I knew with just a little help you'd take it to a whole new level. And you did. Her throat tightened, torn between awe and anger. Then why hide who you are? Why disappear? Was this... Her breath caught, tears burning at her eyes. Was this some kind of payment for that night we spent together, a trade? No! The word came out sharp, desperate. He leaned forward, his eyes blazing. No, Zoe. God, no. From the moment I saw you, I was drawn to you. Not just your beauty, though yes, that's impossible to ignore. But your fire, your warmth, the way you stood up for yourself, the way you threw that champagne in his face. His mouth curved almost sadly. I haven't stopped thinking about you since. She shook her head, torn, overwhelmed. Yes, I'm an architect. This is my father's company. And mine, he admitted quietly. But the man you met that night, the musician, that's me too. Both are me. I never lied to you, Zoe. I just wanted you to like the part of me that feels the most real before you saw all of this. He gestured around the gleaming office. Zoe stared at him, her chest aching, the cupcakes trembling in her lap. I don't know what to believe anymore, Aidan. I know, Zoe, Aidan said quietly, his voice rough at the edges. You'd just come out of a long, messy relationship, and I pulled back because I was scared. That morning, when we woke up together, I saw the message from John, about buying you the furniture you wanted, about building a home for the two of you. And in that moment, all I could think was, what if she's just clinging to me? What if I fall, really fall? And she goes back to him. His jaw tightened, his eyes flicking away. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't survive that. He looked back at her then, raw honesty in his gaze. So I ran. And I hate myself for it. I thought maybe you needed time to figure out your feelings, to be sure of what you wanted, but I should have trusted you enough to say all of this to your face. I should have given you the truth instead of silence. His voice dropped, almost breaking. I was wrong, Zoe, and I'm so damn sorry. For a long moment, Zoe said nothing. Her eyes shimmered, heavy with tears she refused to let fall. Slowly, she rose, setting the white box of cupcakes gently on his desk. Thank you, she whispered, her voice trembling but earnest. For sugar fix. No one has ever cared enough to do something like that for me. Her gaze shifted to the cupcakes, her throat tightening. And thank you for these dreams. I made them after that first night. Thinking of you, you inspired them. Her voice cracked, but she pushed on. And, yes, you should have talked to me, because what I felt for you was so high, Aiden. Higher than I knew how to handle. Aiden rose too, his chest tight, his head dipping as though her words cut. His voice came rough, almost bitter. It was high. Zoe's breath hitched. She tilted her head sadly, her lips trembling. That night, I felt closer to you than I've ever felt to anyone in my life, closer than I thought I could feel to someone I barely knew. Her tears slipped free now. But right now, I need time to think, to breathe. I'm sorry, Aiden. His eyes glistened, voice breaking as he whispered, Zoe. But she only shook her head, turned, and walked to the door. Zoe's hand was already on the door handle when his voice broke through the silence behind her. Zoe, Aiden's tone was raw, urgent, almost shaking. I want to be with you, but only if you want me. Not because you're angry at him, not because you're lonely, not because I was convenient that night. She froze, her back still to him. I need you to choose me, he continued, voice low but steady now. Freely, with a clear heart. I'll wait for that day. But if you can look me in the eye and say, you don't want me, then I'll never bother you again. Zoe closed her eyes, her chest aching so hard it felt like it might split. For a moment, her fingers trembled on the handle, but she didn't turn around. 1 heartbeat. 2. 3. Then she pushed the door open and walked out, leaving his words echoing in the room behind her. Aiden stood rooted in place, his jaw tight, his hands curled into fists, eyes fixed on the doorway where she'd just been, carrying all the hope and hurt he couldn't say out loud. The next morning, Zoe walked the wooded trail with her father, the crisp air biting at her cheeks. She looped her arm through his, leaning into his steady presence like she had as a little girl. So, he asked gently, this musician, he's what's been on your mind, huh? Her throat tightened. I really liked him. I thought he liked me too, but then he disappeared, and when he came back, I'm not sure anymore. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I'm just setting myself up to get hurt again. They stopped. Her father turned, his weathered hands cupping her face. Zoe, both of you are doing the same thing, running from getting hurt. But running only wastes time you can't get back. Life's too short for that. Her eyes stung, but he kept going, voice steady. You're not angry at him. You're angry at yourself. 5 years wasted on John, and you can't forgive yourself for it, but don't punish this man for John's mistakes. From what you've told me, he listens. He gives you space. That's rare. Zoe swallowed hard, her lip trembling. His thumbs brushed her cheeks, gentle. So the question is simple. Is he worth trying for? Don't be afraid of heartbreak. Be afraid of missing the chance at happiness. Her throat tightened. She pressed her face to his chest, clinging to him. His words lingered, heavier than her doubts. On Wednesday night, Zoe stood at the entrance of the rusty halo, her pulse hammering. The bass of the music thrummed through the walls, but inside her chest it was louder, hope and fear colliding. She wanted him. She knew that now. But what if Aidan had changed his mind? What if she stepped inside, only to see indifference in his eyes? "I'm not afraid of heartbreak," she whispered to herself, steadying her breath. "What I can't live with is never knowing." And with that, she pushed open the door. The room swelled with sound, thick with bodies and heat. And there he was, center stage, guitar in hand, voice pouring into the mic. "Now here you go again. You say you want your freedom." Fleetwood Mac's dreams wrapped around her like a current, pulling her forward. She moved through the crowd until she stood right at the front, her eyes locked on his. Aidan's gaze caught hers and never let go. Every word, every chord was aimed at her, and only her. The crowd faded. It was just the two of them, tangled in a song that had always been theirs. Zoe's chest tightened. She wanted to stay, to let the music drown her doubts. But the intensity was too much. Her hands trembled. Before the final chorus, she slipped away, retreating to the bar, her back to the stage. When the last notes rang out, applause thundered, but Aidan barely noticed. He leapt off the stage, weaving through the crowd, searching. And then he saw her, sitting alone at the bar, shoulders tense, a half-finished drink untouched before her. He walked up slowly, heart pounding, then reached out and touched her shoulder. Zoe turned, and when her eyes met his, there was warmth there, softness, the glimmer of everything she hadn't dared to say. Aidan leaned close, his voice low, trembling with truth. "Miss Foster, I swear I've never done anything like this before, but I need your help. For just 1 hour. Pretend you love me. Pretend you're mine. Order me a drink, laugh like I said something funny, make me believe I haven't lost you." Her breath caught, tears welling as the words sank in. Her own words, thrown back at her but now real, raw. Zoe whispered, her voice breaking, "Aidan." He stepped closer, his forehead nearly touching hers, eyes fierce, desperate. "Only this time, Zoe," his voice cracked. "I don't want pretending, I want real." The world seemed to fall away. The bar, the crowd, the noise gone. It was just them. Zoe's lips parted, her tears slipping free as she whispered, "Then stop pretending." And before she could take another breath, Aidan cupped her face and kissed her, hard, hungry, full of every second they'd lost. She melted into him, arms curling around his neck, their bodies pressed close as if nothing else existed. Around them, life carried on, but in that moment, there was no one else. Just Zoe and Aidan, real. Thanks for watching till the end. Now tell me, if you were in Zoe's shoes, would you take the risk on Aidan and give love another chance? Or would you step back to protect your heart? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear what you'd do. Where in the world are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and if this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to me.